Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. This is the second lecture in series with the video number 7, and in today's discussion we would be talking about Archimedes principle, principle of flotation, elasticity, and Hooke's law. So let's start with the first Archimedes principle. Archimedes principle. What is it? You can find its statement in the pink box. When an object is totally or partially immersed in liquid, an upthrust acts on it equal to the weight of the liquid it displaces. So dear students, it's a common observation. Whenever you put something in a liquid pushes it back upward. So this upthrust or buoyant force follows the Archimedes principle. You can understand the Archimedes principle by the following simple illustration. An air-filled balloon immediately shoots up to the surface when released underwater. The same would happen if a piece of wood is released underwater. You must have noticed that a stone feels light underwater but feels heavy as soon as we take it out of the water. So why is it so? Because whenever you put something in liquid, for example water pushes it upward with the upthrust or buoyant force. So these are some examples for Archimedes principle. So let's discuss it in detail. After defining the Archimedes principle, you see in figure 7.18, consider a solid cylinder of cross-sectional area A. You can easily see from the figure, and height h immersed in liquid as shown in figure 7.18. Let h1 and h2 be the depths of the top and bottom faces of the cylinder respectively from the surface of the liquid. Dear students, just focus on the figure and match these words with the figure. Then you can easily see that h2 minus h1 equals h, which is the actually height of the cylinder which is put in the liquid. If P1 and P2 are the liquid pressures at depths h1 and h2 respectively, and rho is its density, then according to equation P1 equal rho g h1, it's a Pascal's law. We talked about it in the previous lecture. Similarly, P2 equal rho g h2. Let the force is exerted at the cylinder top by the liquid due to pressure P1, and the force F2 is exerted at the bottom of the cylinder by the liquid due to P2. So dear students, you see that in figure 7.18, upthrust on a body immersed in a liquid is equal to the weight of the liquid displaces. What is it? So let's see in the next slide. So from the pressure equation we can get F1 equal P1A and P1 rho g h1 A. Similarly, F2 equal P2A and it equals rho g h2A. F1 and F2 are acting on opposite forces of the cylinder. Therefore, the net force will be F2 minus F1 in the direction of F2. This net force on the cylinder is called the upthrust of the liquid. So F2 minus F1 equal rho g h2A minus rho g h1A. We can take rho g A as common, so we are left with rho g A in bracket h2 minus h1, or upthrust of a liquid equal rho g A h, equation 7.5, or we can say upthrust of a liquid equal rho g V. V is the volume. It is obtained by AH because it's a volume of a cylinder. Here AH is the volume V of the cylinder and is equal to the volume of the liquid displaced by the cylinder. Therefore, rho GV is the weight of the liquid displaced, because weight is mg, and m is density times volume. So rho Vg actually equal to the weight. So equation 7.6 shows that an upthrust acts on the body immersed in a liquid and is equal to the weight of the liquid displaced, which is Archimedes' principle. Now let's find density of an object using Archimedes' principle. Dear students, you see in figure 7.19, we are weighing an object with spring balance. First in figure A in air and in figure B in liquid water. So Archimedes' principle is also helpful to determine the density of an object. The ratio in the weights of the body with an equal volume of the liquid is the same as in their densities. Let density of the object D, which is to be determined, density of the liquid rho, weight of the object W1 in air, weight of equal volume of liquid W equal W1 minus W2, because when you put the object in liquid, its weight decreases due to upthrust or buoyant force. So here W2 is the weight of the solid in liquid. According to Archimedes' principle, W2 is less than its actual weight W1 by an amount W. Since uppercase D means density of the object divided by density of the liquid equals W1, which is the weight of the object in air, divided by W, which is the difference in weight when we weighing the object in air and in liquid. So from here D equal W1 by W times rho, or you can say D density of an object equals W1 divided by W1 minus W2 times rho. So dear students, from using this principle, we have found out the density of an object by simple experimental process. So this is a simple straightforward experiment through which we can find density of any solid irregular shaped object. Now, principle of flotation. What is it? A floating object displaces a fluid having weight equal to the weight of the object. So let's see it in detail, how some objects are floating and some objects are sinking. What is the principle behind it? An object sinks if its weight is greater than the upthrust acting on it, because weight is acting downward, and when you put the object in liquid, an upthrust acting upwards. So that's why it is written like an object sinks if its weight is greater than the upthrust acting on it. An object floats if its weight is equal to or less than the upthrust. When an object floats in fluid, the upthrust acting on it is equal to the weight of the object. In case of floating object, the object may be partially immersed. The upthrust is always equal to the weight of the fluid displaced by the object. This is the principle of flotation. So dear students, from this principle you can easily see that which object is floating and why the objects are sinking in fluid or liquid. Here are some instances of principle of flotation: ships and submarines. So in figure 7.20 you are observing a ship floating over water, and in figure 7.21 you see a submarine travels underwater. So in first paragraph you see ships and boats are designed on the same principle of flotation. They carry passengers and goods over water. It would sink in water if its weight, including the weight of its passengers and goods, becomes greater than the upthrust of water, because you have learned in the previous slide that how some objects are floating and some objects are sinking. This basic principle is the principle of flotation. In second paragraph, a submarine can travel over as well as underwater. It also works on the principle of flotation. It floats over water when the weight of the water equal to its volume is greater than its weight. Under this condition, it is similar to a ship and remains partially above water level. It has a system of tanks which can be filled with and emptied from seawater. When these tanks are filled with seawater, the weight of the submarine increases. As soon as its weight becomes greater than the upthrust, it dives into the water and remains underwater. To come up on the surface, the tanks are emptied from the seawater, and in this way its weight becomes lower than the upthrust. That's why it floats over water. So these two instances simply involve principle of flotation. Now come to another topic, elasticity. What is it? The property of a body to restore its original size and shape as the deforming force ceases to act is called elasticity. So let's discuss in detail. We know that the length of a rubber band increases on stretching it. Similarly, the pointer of a spring balance is lowered when a body is suspended from it. It is because the length of the spring inside the balance increases depending upon the weight of the suspended body. Dear students, you see in figure 7.22, what happens to these objects due to the force acting on them? I mean, in part A of this figure, a spring is stretched by a force. In B, a rod is twisted by the torque produced by a couple. And in part C, a strip is bent by a force. So what happens when you apply force, I mean deforming force on these objects? The applied force that changes shape, length or volume of a substance is called deforming force. In most of the cases, the body returns to its original size and shape as soon as a deforming force is removed. Dear students, in the previous slide we have talked about the deforming force, which we are gonna label as stress. And whenever you apply a deforming force on an object, either shape, size or volume of the object is changed. So this change may be called strain. So let's talk about stress and strain. What is stress? Stress is related to the force producing deformation. It is defined as the force acting on unit area at the surface of a body is called stress. Thus, stress equal force divided by area. In SI unit, the unit of stress is Newton per square meter. Now, strain. When stress acts on a body, it may change its length, volume or shape. A ratio of such a change caused by the stress with the original length, volume or shape is called strain. So, if stress produces a change in the length of an object, then the strain is called tensile strain. So, how to define it? Tensile strain equal change in length divided by original length. Strain has no units. Why? As it is simply a ratio between two similar quantities. Now come to the another topic, Hooke's law. What is it? The strain produced in a body by the stress applied to it is directly proportional to the stress within elastic limit of the body. Thus, stress is proportional to strain, or stress equal constant into strain. And from this equation we can say stress divided by strain is constant. So dear students, in figure 7.23, extension in the spring depends upon the load. So it is a practical example of Hooke's law. As you can easily see, it's a practical work that if you keep on adding more and more weights, the extension of spring is more, and it can easily be observed through the meter rule which is attached to this system. So more the pulling force, more would be the extension. So this follows Hooke's law. Some detail of Hooke's law. Here the graphical representation of Hooke's law is given here. You can see in figure 7.24. Hooke's law is applicable to all kinds of deformation and all types of matter, that is solid, liquid or gases, within certain limit. So this is very important to note, that Hooke's law is applicable within certain limit. This limit tells the maximum stress that can be safely applied on a body without causing permanent deformation in its length, volume or shape. In other words, it is a limit within which a body recovers its original length, volume or shape after the deforming force is removed. When a stress crosses this limit, called elastic limit, a body is permanently deformed and is unable to restore its original state after the stress is removed. So dear students, you see that this is the plot force versus extension. If you keep on increasing the force, then the body is stretched, and you see by this pink graph that there is a straightness relation between force and extension up to this arrow. So this is the elastic limit. Beyond this limit, you see there is not directly proportional relation between force and extension. Mean we are crossing the elastic limit, and you know, if you keep on exerting the force, after some time it would be broken, mean breaking point reaches. So this is the graphical explanation of Hooke's law. Young's modulus. The ratio of stress to tensile strain is called Young's modulus. So dear students, from the previous slide we have defined in the presence of Hooke's law that the ratio of stress to strain is always a constant. So the ratio of stress to tensile strain is called Young's modulus. So here consider a long bar of length L0, which is the original length, and cross-sectional area A. Let an external force F equal to the weight W stretches it in it such that the stretched length becomes L. I mean, this is the extended length. According to Hooke's law, the ratio of this stress to tensile strain is constant within the elastic limit of the body. So let's see it in the form of mathematical formalism. So Young's modulus is symbolized by Y, and it equals stress divided by tensile strain. So let delta L mean change in length of the rod, then delta L equal L minus L naught. So stress equal force per unit area mean F by A, and tensile strain in this case equal L minus L naught divided by L naught, mean delta L by L naught. So plug these values in the first equation, Y equals stress by tensile strain. So stress F by A in upstairs, and in downstairs you get strain, tensile strain, delta L by L naught. So simplify it, you get F by A multiplied by L naught by delta L. Or finally you can say that Y equal F L naught divided by A delta L. SI unit of Young's modulus is Newton per square meter, mean Newton per square meter. Dear students, let's conclude it. It is the second lecture of unit number 7, properties of matter. And in today's discussion, we talked about Archimedes' principle, principle of flotation, elasticity, and Hooke's law. Hopefully you understand, and if you keep on observing and study it carefully, you can understand the topics. So take care and goodbye, and see you in next and third lecture of this unit number 7.